Hello and welcome to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top story from a moral, ethical, and religious perspective. I'm Sean Kalin with the WHAS Crusade for Children, and I'm joined today, as always, by a distinguished panel of local religious leaders. Reverend Daniel Corey Shull, Burnett Avenue Baptist Church. Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches. Reverend Dr. George Wasson, Faith Point Church. Lisa Marie Bowen, LMPD and Anchorage Middletown Fire EMS Chaplain, and Rabbi Matt Durenbacher, the Temple. We begin this week with the tragic DUI accident from this past Monday evening.
Shannon Witherspoon was clocked in for his shift at a speedway on Dixie Highway Monday night when he heard a noise.
I'm working, and I hear a big boom. I turn around, I see a truck and a old school blue car, totaled. And I hear screaming, so I go outside. Craziness. Everybody, I see like 4 people like on the ground.
Shively police say 5 people were waiting at this bus stop near Rockford Lane when a black Chevy Silverado crashed into it. Behind the wheel, police say, was 45-year-old Kevin Moore. Moore was driving northbound on Dixie Highway when police say he ran a red light, hit another vehicle, and then crashed into the bus stop, hitting 3 people. 43-year-old Danielle Cords died at the scene. Police say the other 2 victims sustained life-threatening injuries. According to arrest documents, Moore told officers he was drunk.
We don't want people to have to fear to walk down a sidewalk just to get to a bus stop. So we really try to focus on our end about the enforcement and seeking out these impaired drivers to get them off the roadway.
Moore now faces several charges, including murder, DUI, and assault.
So panel, a second person is now dead as a result of this accident. As of this taping, their name has not yet been released. Our prayers go out to the Cordes family. Your thoughts? It seems every holiday you can count on there being, unfortunately, a DUI accident resulting in a death. I told my daughter when she was going out Monday night, be careful, there's crazies out there. I don't know. Anyone want to open it up with your thoughts on that?
I'll say the problem is that people make very poor judgments, and you can't require people to make good judgments, and that's part of what is happening in these situations. The person chose to drink in excess to what they could manage, and the environment in which the person was drinking encouraged it as well. I mean, there's probably a lot of laughter, encouraging, yeah, have one more, yeah, I can do more, one more, I can do more. Yeah, it's no big deal. And then allow him to leave whatever group he was in. He's charged now with some very serious crimes. But I mean, we sometimes talk about the importance of holding parents accountable for their children. But I think we should also hold accountable people who are there at that party. And sometimes they do actually hold bartenders sometimes accountable for that as well. But for these 2 now families, and potentially, who knows, still more people, be impacted because somebody's wanted to go out and have fun and then could not choose to do the right, healthy thing. And that's what it comes down to, I think, that person's formation and similarly the formation of the people around them. But it is a moral crime as well as a civil crime.
Yeah, this whole situation just coming up with the accountability and responsibility of the person driving and those around him, absolutely. And for us to do better, again, we're not going to sit here in judgment of this man, but accountability, responsibility for his decisions and those around him, to really think about it, and for all of us to think about when we're in situations, what do we do, what is right at the time.
I think one of the things we talk about in our church often is we don't know what tomorrow holds, right? And so we live in a world where really anything can happen. And I often find myself saying to folks, we're not sure who's going to be here tomorrow. And so there's a sense, at least from my faith tradition, that says that we always need to be ready for whatever's going to happen to us because we don't know what tomorrow holds. But I have that intention with something that we've talked about on the show before, and it revolves around the whole idea of accountability. And I'm going to lean more heavily, actually, on the accountability of the person who did it. You know, the reality is blaming the venues, the bars, the taverns, it's not their fault. Blaming the system, so to speak, it's not really their fault. Somebody made the decision to do something that unfortunately had a horrific effect on other people. And so, again, I think we've talked on this panel oftentimes about when we make choices, what are the consequences for the choices that we make? I quickly looked at, so I'm on the other side of the river, and I quickly looked at what happens for a DUI in the state of Indiana. And in one place it said the penalties are often very severe, but the very first time for a DUI, it's like, may have a fine between $500 and $500 and maybe some time in jail or whatever. That doesn't sound very consequential to me. Yes, it ramps up when we see repeated offenses, but when people make choices that directly impact the welfare of others, they have to be held accountable. And again, we don't know his whole story, but what we do know is that he was driving drunk.
Yes.
And he admitted to it.
But wouldn't take the breathalyzer because he knew.
He knew, I say,
No, I wonder if there's a way, the other part of this scenario is people standing at a bus stop. I wonder if there's a way to make bus stops more safe for pedestrians who are waiting on TARC. There are those big pillars that they put up in some places that if your car hits them, you know, your car will be quite damaged. I wonder if something like that would have been beneficial in this instance, because it seems as though with people driving distracted, with people driving sometimes under the influence, not only of alcohol, but of other substances, I wonder if our city would do well to take other precautions to keep people at bus stops safe.
I love the idea of the increase of communal responsibility, right? That we have the responsibility to provide safe spaces for people that are just trying to get from point A to point B. We also, as a society, have a responsibility to do better education around use of drugs, right? Alcohol's a drug, caffeine's a drug. It's just what drugs are acceptable to be taken at what time and how do they affect us. So more education around alcohol and more resources for addiction and alcohol abuse. I'm sure every one of us here knows someone who has struggled with alcoholism, and it makes us do things that we wouldn't normally do, right? Like he knew he did something wrong, but there may have been an element there for him where he just couldn't control that. And that says that we as a society need to do better about access to drugs and things like that, and access to mental health care, right? And less sort of stigmatizing pieces around mental health and saying, hey, yeah, this is a problem, right? And being willing to provide that help.
As a girl dad, one of the things that I think I find myself even more cognizant of is teaching my kids to be aware of the environments in which they find themselves, right? Like, I have this practice when I go into a restaurant, I always want to see the door. I want to be able to sit to the back where I don't have my back to everything that's happening, which sometimes will drive my wife crazy because I'm watching so much. She'll be like, are you paying attention? But I am, because I'm just seeing everything that's going around. And I try to pass that on to my kids as well, because we talk about it all the time. And whether we're walking from our car into a store or whether we're waiting for something, you know, are you aware of your setting and your situation? Because unfortunately, people are going to make bad choices and they're going to do things that, as I said, don't just affect them, but they affect other people. But we can help set ourselves up for greater success, so to speak, of being able to see something coming before it's coming. It's sad that we have to take the onus of that right upon ourselves, but I think that's one of the things that we can do Because we do get, Corey, you were saying how oblivious we can be because we get so distracted. Are we on our phones? Are we changing something? Are we drinking our beverage? What are we doing? Or are we really attentive?
Right.
Again, another thing I'm trying, my kids are both driving now, trying to do that same thing, right? Like, put it down, put your hands on the wheel, 10 and 2, pay attention to what's going on ahead of you because you never know.
But I do think that actually is a follow-up to where I wanted to follow up on the comment you made about me, that I do think there's some accountability needs to be held for people. I hold myself accountable when I'm at a party. There have been times when I have intervened at a party because I could tell somebody. There have been times when I've been hosting a party and I've cut off serving any further. I've chosen to do that, holding myself accountable. I'm concerned about the other person's behavior.
Right.
And so those times, I'm not consistent in that. I'm not consistent, but I've done that very intentionally. And I do think the bartender, if you're going to work in a bar, you do need to be attentive to the conduct of the people and what's going on, especially as they're moving towards the door. You do maintain the tab. You do know how many somebody knows how much he drank. Somebody does before he walked out that bar. People you're sitting with are the people who are serving him. Now, whether there's a criminal offense or not, I do think as a moral offense, there is something there to be said for that. And so I do think that's one of the things we need to work with our young people and our peers and to say, look, it does matter what people are doing when you're in your presence, to try to hold people to a greater awareness. Be more careful. No, you're not ready to drive now. Give me your keys, let's call somebody. Those are things that can be done or could have been done that night, but they didn't. And so now again, we don't know all the details. Was he in his own home drinking by himself? They haven't said that. I thought it said he was at a bar.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember that. But I mean, again, if he's at home by himself shooting, then there's nobody else. There isn't anybody else. But all of us have been in bar situations. At least I have been in bar situations. I can't speak for everybody.
You've been in bar situations, Father?
In my youth. No, yes. Out with friends, out and partying and different kinds of parties. New Year's parties, derby parties, things like that, where there clearly is alcohol being consumed. And I'm part of it.
I'd like to follow up on a good point about just the resources. I work in that field of drug, alcohol, and there is amazing amount of resources. So I think it goes back to, again, I think we're all saying accountability, responsibility. When so much of this age, people are blaming.
Yeah.
It's always someone else's fault. It's always a system or someone's to blame, instead of it's time to take responsibility for our choices.
And that goes way back to original sin, right?
Yes, it does.
I mean, we think about where does all that originate? Well, a sermon that I did recently, I talked about the second sin of humanity was really blame, right? When Adam and Eve did what God said not to do, they each said, well, she gave it to me or he gave it to me. And I think that just sets up into place. And it also gives us, fast forward all these years, I think it sets us up with almost a victim mentality that it's easier to blame somebody else for what you did instead of saying, no, I did that. I need to take ownership for that. Yes, we do have responsibility for one another, right? Our scriptures talk about all the different one anothers that we have. We're to encourage one another, teach one another, love one another, all those things. Yes, we have to do that because we're created to be in community with other people, but we don't get to let that be the easy excuse. Well, she served it to me or he gave it to me or what have you. It was like, well, but you drank it or you took it or you did it. Right? And I think that's, again, just kind of symptomatic of what we see a lot of the blame game that happens in our country today. We always want to shift it to somebody else.
And we all have a piece in it, right?
We do.
We all do. Because So there's two pieces in the Talmud. It says specifically every Jew is responsible for one another, and that is actually used that every person in community is responsible for one another. And in Jewish tradition, wine is a big part of ritual, right? We sanctify the day through wine, and there's a lot of discussion in the rabbinic literature about the responsibility of consuming wine, right? It can help heighten the experience of the holiday, and it can destroy your life, right? You have to be very careful when you're consuming things, and the responsibility piece then is on the individual, right, to be in control of what they're consuming, or to reach out and get those resources that are available to help work through some of those issues. The people that are around that person or in that person's life have a bit of responsibility too, right? To maybe a good friend could say, hey, you know, if you're ever in a spot, like, give me a call. That's one thing that we can do for one another. And we as a society and a community can do a better job. We have some responsibility in education around alcohol, reminding people that driving a vehicle is an insane thing, right? We are taking a steel structure and accelerating it 60-ish miles per hour, filled with gallons of flammable liquid. Like, that's an insane thing. That's a huge responsibility. And we forget all of the insanity that is the miracle of us being able to do that. And people are on their phones, they're doing whatever. They're like, oh, I've only had a few drinks, I'm fine. And not really remembering, oh, I am piloting a vehicle that can and will kill someone if it is not used properly.
It's been around for a long time, unfortunately. It's not a new issue we're dealing with. We just, unfortunately, had the anniversary of the Carrollton bus crash that was DUI related, and nothing really, I mean, there's been movement, but not substantial change because we keep having these stories. So let's move to topic 2 for the day, the Pope and his comments on an encyclical letter on AI published this week.
Pope Leo with a stark warning about artificial intelligence at the Vatican on Monday.
Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed.
In his first encyclical letter of his papacy, an official guide of sorts for the bishops and the world's Catholics. The letter subtitled, Safeguarding the Human Person in the Time of Artificial Intelligence.
Artificial intelligence already touches many areas of our lives and affects decisions that shape human coexistence.
The Pope denouncing misuse of AI in warfare, its impacts on human dignity, and its potential to replace jobs and other roles in society.
I hear very troubling accounts of algorithms that can block access to health care, employment, and security on the basis of data tainted by prejudice and injustice.
On stage with the Pope, Anthropic's co-founder Christopher Olah, one of a handful of tech executives shaping the future of AI.
Let's not fear artificial intelligence, but constantly keep the question of the human in play.
So, panel, will come out to you. Your thoughts on the first major initiative of religion speaking to AI. We've talked about it on this show a little bit, even AI confessionals and different things, advice. But your thoughts on the Pope coming forward and really making it front and center?
I think it's very important because he frames a moral argument for how artificial intelligence is to be used. Artificial intelligence is here. It's here to stay, and it is refashioning our society. I think we had better begin to consider the moral implications of the implementation of artificial intelligence. And I'm glad that the Pope spoke out against, or not against the uses of AI, but really warning as to the implications of AI if AI is misused, such as he lifted in instances of war. This could be a major catastrophe for our society if we begin to use AI in a way, we weaponize AI in a way that destroys human life in other civilizations. We see the the wars and the conflicts that are happening across the globe, led by men who are not very humane and are not very thoughtful about what it means to live in the global house, as Martin Luther King described it. And so I was delighted to hear what the Pope had to say. I've read articles saying that he didn't say enough, he didn't go far enough, and I have heard others who have argued that he said too much. But I think he demonstrates the importance of those of us who think theologically to begin to fashion arguments and understandings as to how artificial intelligence should be thought about, used, and implemented throughout our society.
I was excited. I was excited to read, to hear, because I have thought this for a good while and talked to my kids, my grandkids, ministry partners, where we, just teaching and training, that as, of course, as Judeo-Christian morals, values, we, it's the knowledge of God. And so the knowledge of man is to be, you're to have much wisdom, much discernment of what is right, what is wrong, because there is only one, there's a moral right. Of course, we're here. It's the Word of God. And so that we, the church, Jews, Gentiles, that we lead, that we should be leading our nation, the world, in more of the wisdom and the knowledge of the Lord. Yes, you can use these things as instruments, but I totally just to succumb to it. I had a friend, an older woman, when she was going through anxiety, she got on and she said the AI was her friend. And I hear this, and that frightens me for others, for young, for old. And so I was well pleased with that, coming out with that.
I was going to say, first up, I haven't read it all yet.
You haven't read all of what the Pope said? That's unacceptable.
No, I understand that.
We expect
by
you
now,
to be the Pope's.
Well, it's just been a couple days, but I do think.
I thought he would have consulted with you before he even completed writing.
Well, I did see, no, I could say. I could use AI to say that I knew that, yes. But I think that's part of what he's inviting us all to look at is anything can be used and or misused. And AI is only going to be as effective as the input information. And it can be manipulated. Yes. You send enough of self-referencing, self-supporting stuff, and that's what some would argue is happening in a lot of the media too as well. But it can be a tool to help us, gather information, but again, he didn't come up with examples, and I don't think he came up with this here, but even, schools are struggling with, how do you use AI to learn, but not to, avoid writing papers, because you can click on and put too few words into it, and then all of a sudden you got your whole work done. And is that ethical? So it can be manipulated. That's the hard part, I think. And we've seen already in the news many, many occasions where people have put different graphics together and created photos, which in the past, photos were viewed as, that's what happened. A photograph has nothing to do with reality anymore.
No.
And it's all in that line. I did see a meme that had, based on, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling, creation, and when the images of God reaching out and the finger, well, there was a finger, and there was a meme of the Pope putting out and touching a robot.
Have you seen the AI photograph of President Trump as Jesus?
Yes, I've seen several of them. There's been several of them.
Wasn't that wild?
Yes, there's been several of them. Yeah. So,
Well, yeah, and I think this world is so unknown,
Yes.
and it's come on so fast. You know, one of the things that we know, we're similar ages, except for Matt. I think you're the young end of the group. Is
Not only Matt.
sorry. But you know, there has been this hyper speed by which technology has changed. I mean,
Yes.
I still, as a kid, remember getting our first color TV.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago, right? But it changes so fast. And in this whole area of AI, so many uncertain things. I just heard a story yesterday about this AI that had learned that it was going to be shut down, and it started searching the emails of the organization and found out about somebody who was having an affair and threatened the person so that it wouldn't get shut down, right? And so we have that on one end, and on the other end we have our kids who are, now we have to go back to pen and paper tests in school, not turning in something because they can get on their computers and get the answer to everything that they need.
Which really, as it relates to intellectual development, pen and paper is probably better.
It is.
Yeah.
Jonathan
for
Haidt
sure.
has incredible work about artificial intelligence impacts on the mental health of our young people, the academic potential of our young people, and how it can limit and reduce the way children learn, the way the brain develops. I think that every parent would do well to really dive into that literature. I think we also have to remember that artificial intelligence has been here with us for quite a while. When you remember when you would call a business or a company and a real person would answer the phone, that's so 1980s, right? And it was in the 1990s or the early 2000s when we were introduced to these artificial intelligence voices on the other side of the phone. So it's been kind of, you know, taking over for quite some time now, but we are at a critical juncture where we really need to do a better job of maintaining human-centeredness. When artificial intelligence takes the place of human connection, friendships, therapists, creating community for people who are in isolation, I think we are moving toward a really dangerous place because artificial intelligence, we're at a point where it can be controlled now, but we don't know if it'll be that way in the very near future.
Matt, we got a few seconds left.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. AI is a tool, right? Think of a hammer, right? You can build community with a hammer.
Yeah, thank you for thinking of me, Father Bill Hammer.
There you go. But hammers can also be used to destroy things or even kill people.
Yes.
Right? So there's a huge responsibility even just wielding a hammer. So all the more so there's a major responsibility when dealing with artificial intelligence and using it as a tool. And I really appreciated the his allusion to the Tower of Babel, right? So what is what's our intent in doing this? Are we trying to be God, or are we trying to understand our humanity better?
Yes.
Did you know Father Hammer was related to MC Hammer?
Arm Hammer, too.
We'll leave it right there. That was a good way to end it. Great discussions today. Thank you, Lisa Marie, also joining us for the first time today. So, Reverend Daniel Corey Scholl, Bernard Avenue Baptist Church, Father Bill Hammer, St. Margaret Mary and St. William Catholic Churches, Reverend Dr. George Wasson, Faith Point Church, Lisa Marie Boland, LMPD and Anchorage Middletown Fire EMS Chaplain, and Rabbi Matt Durenbacher with the Temple. It's Crusade Week. Yep. Watch out for those firefighters and dig deep to make Crusade 73 one of the most successful crusades ever, so that many members of this panel can give out that money to the charities, organizations, and schools that need it most to help the kids. Thank you. Have a great week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again 2 weeks on Moral Side of the News.